Hi, you're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast of bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundram, and with my co-host Ashley Case, we'll be sitting down with the industry leaders to share their stories, discuss the career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry. Today's guest is Hamish Lorraine-Smith. Hamish has been my mentor for a very long time. If I know a little bit about bids, it's all due to Hamish. So Hamish is currently head of bidding and leads part of the global growth team in Serco Asia Pacific. And previously he was with Serco UK and Europe, and where he led the bidding and solutions team of approximately 70 people. And then he was a bid director, very complex bid across multi-sectors, which he will touch. Even before that, he was leading most of our prison bids all the way from 2005 onwards. And before that, he was also operations and business development manager, contract manager, as well as, what we call as a full stack bidder, where you come in, do a bid, mobilize a contract, go run the contract, manage a team. If you want to have a perfect example, that's Hamish. So I have the pleasure to work with Hamish for well over 7-8 years. So Hamish also has a Bachelor of Science from University of Edinburgh, and previously he was affiliated as a board member with Trustee APAC Scotland. So with all due, let me welcome Hamish to Scribble Talk. Welcome, Hamish.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Delighted to be here. It's been a long time since we've talked, but yeah. We're delighted to get the invite and also to catch up with you. So thank you. Yeah, looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Hamish. Let's go back to the very beginning, Hamish. Where were you born? And let's talk about your early years, schools.
Yeah, so as you'd imagine from the accent, I was born in Scotland in a town, well, it's a city now, called Inverness in the north of Scotland. And I spent all my school years there before I went to university in Edinburgh. So yeah, that was where I grew up. So yeah, very snowy place in the winter. Short days in the winter and long nights in the summer. So a great place to grow up.
Wow. That's, again, Scotland. I remember my very first exposure to my official career started in Kilmarnock prison.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got down, I mean, like, this place is a completely different world. I thought the whole of United Kingdom is the same. But So talk us through any early memories. Any childhood memories come to your mind, Hamish, when you grew up?
So I played a lot of sport when I was growing up in Inverness, and yeah, I was lucky to grow up with a younger sister and brother, and we were allowed. We had a very comfortable upbringing, and we were just allowed to roam the streets of Inverness, and we would go swimming every day after school. Mum would be working, so we'd go down swimming together as a family and have a laugh and meet Mum after work, and get some chips, hot chips as they call it here in Australia. Get chips on the way home, and yeah, it was a nice upbringing. And the winter, as I mentioned, I can remember the snow being up to my knees, but at that point I was only about 3.5 feet high, so the snow wasn't particularly deep, but Yeah, I remember a lot of very, very snowy winters, which are few and far between, now, whether that's global warming or something else, who knows. But yeah, it was a lovely place, the north of Scotland.
Wow, beautiful. I think the people, if you haven't visited Scotland, you do have to. It's a world in itself. Thank you. Thank you, Hamish. Again, moving from Inverness, your high school was in Inverness as well, or was the bachelor's of science? Is it the first time you moved out of Inverness to a big city? Yeah.
Yeah. So high school was Inverness. My dad actually worked in Edinburgh, which is probably, 150 miles south from Inverness. And I ended up going to university in Edinburgh. And my family, the Lorraine-Smiths, have got a long family association with the University of Edinburgh. My great-great-great-grandfather was dean of the medical faculty. So I was always going to Edinburgh University, and that's where I went. And I studied there for a number of years, and I stayed with Dad in his flat. And it was good because I had a taxi home to Inverness at the weekends if I wanted. It was a 2.5-hour drive, but it was great to have that. And if I didn't want to go home, I got to send my laundry home with him at the weekend, and it would be delivered back as he arrived back for work on the Monday. So it was good. Yeah, Edinburgh, I love Edinburgh. And, I spent, I think, in total about 25 years there, living there after leaving Inverness.
Wow. So finished your bachelor's, interesting topic, Bachelor of Science in Social Science. Any particular reason for that undergraduate degree?
Yeah, so Scotland has slightly different degrees from the rest, from the rest of the UK, from England. So if you do honours in Scotland, then you do a 4-year degree and you specialise in a particular subject. But if like me, you're an average student, you can finish your degree after 3 years and get a Bachelor of Science in Social Science, which is called a general degree. So it's not an honours degree. I don't tell anybody that in interview, by the way. Really the main topics I studied in that were psychology and politics with a bit of business studies in there. So yeah, the Scottish system is very different from the English system, and it's a very generalist one. So that's the reason for that degree. Although I do know in Australia they're similar, although it's still a 3-year. But yeah, that's the difference in Scotland. It's your general degree 3 years and then an honours degree in 4 years. Totally.
Social science, my God, I mean, very early on, you already got into the grips of social science. Was there something that you chose by choice, or was it something that you just happened?
So no, my mum was a big influence. I had a huge interest in psychology. An early book I read was Desmond Morris, The Naked Ape, which was about human behaviour, and that really gave me a lot of interest. I was also very interested in body language and the like. So I thought, psychology sounds pretty interesting. And there was a topic in high school called Modern Studies, which was about politics. So the first year I did that was about UK politics. Second year was European politics. So the two naturally came together, and I was able to choose those as sort of the two main topics going into university. So yeah, psychology, as I say, from my mum, bit of an interest, and that was why. So yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, some people have, coming out of high school, have a very clear idea. Maybe I did fall into it, but no, I was never going to be an accountant or a physician or a doctor or anything like
that. I mean, what a conscious decision of what you are good at, choosing what you're good at, and then just enjoying the degree. That's great. And after you finished your social science degree, did you work somewhere in between? What was your early career move, Hamish?
Yeah, so when I finished university, obviously, as I said, it was my dad giving me a lift home regularly and going back to Inverness. I worked in hotels. And when I finished my degree, I actually applied for the Scottish Prison Service. But I've got what appears to be a very rare condition that, you see when the doctors tap your knees and your leg jerks. Mine don't do that. So when I went for the medical for the prison service, they said, oh, we're not too sure about this. So I spent a year working in hotels as a barman and a porter whilst they worked through this. And that was great fun. So that was my gap year, working in a hotel in Inverness, before ultimately I had to make a choice of career. And the funny story is that when I got the all clear for the prison service, I'd started to get bored a few months earlier, and I applied to, at the time, it was Napier College, which is now Napier University, to do a postgraduate diploma in hospitality management, because I enjoyed working in hotels. Now, people say hotels, prisons, very similar or not. So I got a letter from the prison service and from Napier College, both offering me a place starting 1st of October 1991. So I had two letters in front of me, and it was like, well, what do I do? Do I go into hotel management, or do I go into work in the prisons? And I actually took a coin out, and I tossed the coin. Heads prison, tails hospitality management, and it came up heads prison, and I went, that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, that was the start of my career that's ultimately ended up me being here.
What a decision-making skill that you had, which kept flip a coin, choose a career, and it takes you to wherever you want to. That's one thing listeners can pick up. Don't make it too hard on yourself. Flip a coin. Wow, 40 years in service. How was it? I mean, like, obviously, prison environment is it's a very different environment, right? Because of just talk us through how was that experience of getting into the prison service. And for the first few years, when you see outside, we all are doing whatever, but inside is much more regulated. How did you kind of, went into that?
So it was probably one of the best educational experiences of my life. I'd spent a reasonably sheltered, probably middle-class upbringing in Inverness and at university. And suddenly I was thrust into Edinburgh prison, which was just a maelstrom of noise and activity and violence. And my initial posting was in a wing called Fourth Hall. And there was around 95 prisoners there, of which around, I think 25 were lifers, so murderers, and the remainder were seriously violent offenders. So yeah, I had to learn a lot about communication. I had to learn a lot about how to manage people that I had no natural connection to. And it was a fantastic time. Worked in a very, very good team. I've got stories that I could tell over a beer or two, and I won't do here, but really was exposed to a huge amount of different life, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah, some scary times, but I'm actually, as we're speaking, looking at my bookcase here, and I've got a book about train spotting. So I don't know if you know the film Train Spotting, but that came out after a couple of years of me working in the prison in Edinburgh. And the characters in the book and the film were the people I was locking up, day in, day out. So that was an incredible validation to see something being written about what I really, really enjoyed and had a lot of pleasure and pride in working in the prison service. So that was my initial posting, and yeah, that continued. I moved around for a number of years, working in another prison in Glasgow, Barlinnie, which is notorious. A lot of very difficult problems, in the mid-80s with riots and everything else. So I worked there, and latterly became a contract manager, managing a private sector prison, which might lead you into your next question.
Totally. I mean, like it's classic, because normally people say you fall into this career, but no, people have different stories. But I'm sure nobody has ever told us, I started in a prison service, then I moved into bid management, which is very unique. You don't get that very often, Hamish. And especially as a contract manager level, which means you already had the operational experience of running a contract, which was outsourced, but then you came back and did the other way around. For most people, it's normally you enter the bid world, then you get into operations, but it's amazing. So talk us through, how was it transitioning from public service to private, which you already did, part of the operational role, but when you move into a different functional role in business development and also bid management, how was the journey?
Yeah, so I managed, so I had contract management responsibility on behalf of the Scottish Prison Service for a private prison, which was run by Serco. And at the time, the Scottish government were looking to outsource more prisons. And through discussions with Serco, they said, do you fancy coming doing bidding? And I had no idea what bidding was. I had to go, I'm not sure Google was around at that time. This is about 15, 16 years ago, but I had no idea what it was. But literally, a couple of phone calls and a lunch or two later, suddenly I'm walking into Bracknell in the south of England, suddenly becoming an operations and business development manager, effectively a bid manager, going, right, what happens here? And it was a revelation, the fast-paced nature, the people, the positive culture. I just absolutely loved it. It just felt so natural. I was having to travel down from Scotland every week, flying into London and out to Bracknell. And I just loved it. It was a very, very small team. So Bracknell, and then we ended up setting up an office in Doncaster Prison, actually. So it was myself and Elaine Bailey, and it was a very small team to start with, and we were really looking to grow the whole justice portfolio within the company. So for me, once I got over the hurdle of I'm leaving a very comfortable, safe job and potentially taking a risk, but I was quite happy to bet on myself at that point. And yeah, it was pretty straightforward, but maybe that's my memories, sort of diminishing the worries I had at the time. But yeah, it was pretty straightforward for me, I think.
I think that's the classic about you, Hamish. I think you just entered, okay, what's bidding? Few years later, you wrote the best practice guide, which is still being used by hundreds of people, including myself. That's the kind of another thing which I would also like listeners to get on board. And once you get in something, I think you love it and you learn it, share it, and that's the best thing. I think yes, we worked together on some very classic prison bids, and you were there and you progressed to become a bid director. Then you also progressed to head of the bidding and solutions team, which then was the UK and Europe 70-member team. How was that experience of, okay, here I am as a bid manager, then elevating into bid director, then moving on to lead a big team? Talk us through about that transition as well, please, Hamish.
Yeah, I think, I played a lot of sport growing up, and I played at a reasonable level, at representative level, not quite international, but representative level. And for me, bidding was almost like playing sport. I've said to people before, bidding is effectively, it's like being in the Olympic 100-meter finals. You never win a bid, if it's 100 meters, you don't win the 100 meters by 5 seconds. You win it by a fraction of a second. And that fraction of a second is based on years of practice and getting yourself fit and mindset and everything else. And that's what I loved about bidding. When I first got into it, it took us about 18 months before we started winning. And for me, that alignment, playing sport at a very high level and going into bidding, there was just a huge natural alignment. And it's still like that to this day. I still get that buzz. So I think for me, working and winning, and not winning at any cost, but winning good business was fantastic. And, I did that for a number of years. And as you know, Bhaskar, the team grew and grew. And yeah, it's very difficult to describe. I think people say is, if you enjoy your job, then you never work a day in your life. And it was like that. It was just fantastic. And for me, it was and still is aligned to playing sport at the highest level.
100%, Hamish. You just made it sound so simple, but I know for many people, I know there is the other school of thought where, big professionals are undervalued, they're overworking, and sometimes they're not, they are stressed and other things. But you come have this epitome of hope, like, what, put your heads down, learn as much as you can, and then things will fall in place. So in just while doing, yes, there were lots of prison bids that you worked on early on, because that's where you started an operational role, Hamish, but that didn't stop you to do a lot of healthcare projects, welfare projects. And I remember you immersed yourself in everything, local government and so many other things. Talk us through transitioning. Okay, now you learned the art of bidding, but how was it to applying that in other sectors as well? What tips, advice, what learnings did you gather from there?
I think for me, it's about, and this, we may talk more about it, it's about being inquisitive and also liking people. The thing about working for Serco, and I should say in case the corporate lawyers are listening at any point, these are all my own views and none are Serco's, so that's a disclaimer, there you go. But, it was just about working with people and working with good people and working out a solution that would benefit the end user, which is always going to be the citizen. So whether it was a prisoner, whether it was someone that was, on benefits, whether it was someone looking for jobs, for me, that was the real pleasure was creating a solution that I knew that if we won this contract, it would make a difference to somebody, in England or in Wales or in Scotland. And for me, that was a real driving factor. You don't bid to submit a tender. You bid, you've got to believe in what you're doing and it's going to make a difference, I believe. And that, because I believe that, I moved across and I did a number of bids. I did National Citizen Services, picked up on that, and other ones, as you say, working with third sector and everything else. And all the time it was about an inquisitiveness and a respect. Community payback, for example, in London, working with London Probation Trust, really just accepting and being interested in the public sector and how they viewed the private sector and trying to work out, okay, we've got different values, well, not really different values, but different views on how things should be delivered. How do we pull that together? And I think that's what I tried to do, was to bring people together to try and create a solution that was mutually acceptable or mutually beneficial, but ultimately was to the, it made a difference to the people that the contract would touch once it was operational. Wow.
I mean, like as you rightly mentioned, regardless of what you do, think about the end user and be curious.
Yes.
And what a powerful message that one, Hamish. Thank you. Hamish, while you were doing that, I know you as a sports person, you naturally mobilize the team around you, give them the insights, give them the leadership, drive them towards success. But heading up 70-member team, restructuring a team towards the growth of a company, finding career management plans for individuals, how did that happen? And talk us through, for people, especially now, there is a talent crisis, as you know. There is not many people available, or people doesn't stay, and there is so many things that happens. Talk us through when you became the director of bidding and solutions. You have to manage 70 people. They all had their own views, own career ambitions, but the number of bids are to a certain extent fixed. How did you empower them? How did you restructure? Just give some few tips, insights there, please.
Yeah, I think I was very lucky that I had a lot of good people. I worked with a lot of good people, including yourself, Bhaskar, and a lot of the people that we've worked with. It was good people, and they were really, really focused. And, the organization had a very, very good culture. And it was about, I don't think it was around at that time. This is about, I can't remember now, it's about 12 years ago or something. But a human-centered approach, which I just learned about in the last week or two with some reading. And a human-centered approach is about, if you treat your people well, then they will deliver for you. And for me, that was the case, was try and put some structure, give people an understanding of where they're going, but look after them first. Don't threaten people with, we have to have a new win rate of 70%. If we don't get that, then, you're going to be losing your job. It's about, how can I make your job better? And the other theory, which I like and I still work to, is servant leadership, which is about, if with people that work for me in the team, if I can make their job easier, then they will deliver. And that was pretty much how I looked at it. So we did a lot. You know, you mentioned, Bhaskar, about the bid methodology that we wrote. It was about doing these things, putting the methodology in place, putting a career structure in place. Now, we were lucky because there was a number of people there. We couldn't get it right. As you know, it's very, very difficult to give a career structure within a bid environment. You know, so if you've got the roles as bid admin, bid writer, bid manager, bid director, there isn't a natural step between each one of them. So you then need to take a view of, right, okay, how can I make everybody's roles within those roles as fulfilling as possible, and almost look laterally. And again, within the company, it was about, okay, if you're not going to bid with us, is there something else you can do? So it was just taking that holistic view and thinking about what can I do to make individuals' jobs better, and then wrapping around it.
Well said, Hamish. I'm sure there's a lot of lessons to learn there. Hamish, at that point, you transitioned and you started to take global roles, Hamish. You were there in the Middle East, you were there in Asia Pacific, and today you even relocated and you're leading the Asia Pacific's bidding solutions team there. Talk us through about that journey of, okay, you know what, in UK, I exhausted myself. I tried everything. I did bids in my chosen sector, moved on to adjacent sectors, even led the whole team in UK and Europe. Now I'm going to learn something on different geographies. That comes with its own culture as well, right? Different cultures, bidding differently. Talk us through about some of those as well, and any memorable bids on non-UK Asia Pacific projects, and also Middle East and any other projects, Hamish.
Yeah, so I did a couple of projects in the Middle East, which unsurprisingly were prison related. So that was very interesting to do that, just to get a very brief sort of understanding the culture. But you know, the Scots have always travelled for work, and I've always had an interest about travelling for work. And I was asked to come across to Australia initially to lead on a prison bid called the Grafton Prison Bid, which is now the Clarence Correctional Centre. It was to be the largest prison that Australia has ever built, 1,700 beds. So I was asked to come across and lead on that. So I was going back to my roots. You know, I love prisons. That may sound funny to some people, but I love being in around it. I understand them. And to come across and do that. So I led that deal, and it was on secondment, actually. Yep. And so came across, and gee whiz, it was hard. You know, I left, I'd set up the structures within the team in the UK, and they were pretty much running. And, you know, I walked in, and, you know, the Aussies are pretty much, okay, who are you, sort of thing, you know. So I had to almost start again, quite rightly, to reestablish myself, because, you know, it didn't matter what I'd done in the UK. It didn't matter how much I'd won. And that was a big lesson, I think, for anybody, you know, about relocating, that you have to be pretty humble and just go, okay, you know, they don't know me from anybody else. So we went in and we ran that, and it was within a PPP or a PFI structure. So we had to deal with the builders and the architects, and I was very lucky that I formed a very strong bond with the architects, Peramo Pedivoli. And gee whiz, it was hard. It was really, really hard. But we won it. And it was the largest deal that Serco has ever won globally. I think it was about $2.4 billion. So unsurprisingly, I came back, and Serco UK were looking to restructure, and Australia said, do you want to come back full time? And, you know, for me personally, that was a good opportunity. We'll not go into that, but it was a good opportunity. So I said, yeah, absolutely. So I came back to Australia probably 5 years ago now as a bid director, and just got straight back onto the tools and started bidding again, and had to almost step back. But yeah, working in Australia, working in Sydney was just, there was a lot of learning and a lot of newness, which was fantastic.
Wow, again, you know, moving into a different country itself is a challenge. With moving and picking up the most complex bid the company has ever done, it comes with its own different challenge. But again, that comes with your personality, Hamish, because in challenges or It's not a challenge for you. It's just another opportunity which you thoroughly enjoy. It's just it happens to be the largest tender, plus it happens to be in a different geography. That's it. Rest of it will fall in place. That's brilliant. I think from doing bids today, you are the Asia Pacific part of the growth team there, leading the bid team. Talk us through about how was it. On one end, 10 years ago, you were managing the UK and Europe's bid team. Today, you are doing the same thing in Australia. How was it? Is it the same? Is it similar? Many differences that you found there of way of operating in bits and pieces?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities. Australia is very multicultural. There's a lot of UK people around, but the scale is very different in terms of the pipeline. So rather than before having a large team and being able to dedicate, individual bid teams to specific sector focus, what I'm having to do now is juggle a number of resources across different sectors and be much more hands-on and involved in terms of bid leadership and bid support. And you mentioned before about the skills crisis or the experience crisis, or people just don't want to do bidding. Mm-hmm. So it is very much hands-on, being involved, getting involved with silver reviews and gold reviews, very much driving the solution, even though I've got bid directors running that. And I have to remember, and this might sound funny, I have to remember that I've got a wealth of experience to give, and I've been running, workshops with the teams just to sit down and talk about, almost situational analysis. How would you do this? And talking it through with people and supporting them. And of course, the world has changed. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was okay to work 14 hours a day. I mean, Bhaskar, you remember some of the nights out we had. Gee whiz, and then you got up, 2 or 3 hours later. People don't want to do that. I can't do it anymore. I'm a bit old, but people want a good work-life balance. So it's all about, again, thinking about the team, think about the individuals, think about how to support them, how I can support them, how can I enable them to do the best that they can based on their experience, based on their needs, based on their aspirations. So a lot of it, again, comes back to that human-centered servant leadership, supporting individuals, but also making sure that we win good business.
Again, Hamish, it's as you rightly said, by being yourself, by understanding yourself. I mean, because people see. So if I look into you for everything, when I was very early on in my career, you were there always for me, always spending time for me. Even you were one of the very first person who turned up home and leaving to stay with me until late as well. I mean, it's important. I think once, because people look into people who they work around, and we set up that right work ethics, people around us will build up, create that work ethics, and that's the moral of the story. You made it sound simple, because it might have been the brought up, it might be what you read, it might be the team, we all had Elaine as our leaders, which means we learned from her, and then we just adopted and passed on. Again, that's important. In your case, being inquisitive, being learner, and being the end user that you mentioned, and also giving people the move, all these things adds up, Hamish. Brilliant. So thank you, Hamish. I think we talked a lot about your career so far, and let's officially enter. Before we enter what we call the rapid random fire question, or in honor of Howard Nut, we call it Nutters round. Talk us through 3 things not many people know about you, Hamish.
3 things not many people know about me. Oh, gee whiz, I think I'm a bit of an open book. But one recently, I was back in Europe last week, representing Australia at the World Curling Championships at the seniors. So I'm an international athlete.
Wow.
So that was fun. So yeah, I've kept that going. What else do people not know about me? That's a tough one. I don't know. Yeah, that was one, and I thought about it because clearly you'd given me a couple of hints about questions. I think I'll stick at that. Oh yeah, I played pool with Tom Jones in Nashville once.
Hmm.
And what else? I don't know. That'll do. I really can't think.
When you introduced pretty much everybody what curling is, I remember going with you, and then we had a couple of sessions, and you were like, you was the 20 years ago. I'm talking about Hamish, and you are still competing at the international stage, representing Scotland, representing Australia now. But it's unbelievable. I mean, like, hey, outside that, hobbies and interests, Hamish?
Yeah, so I mean, bidding is a very lonely existence. I think it takes certain types of people. You can see what happens to relationships if you bid hard, and that's not right. There should be better. But I go to the gym a lot. I'm interested in photography. I've got more interested in reading recently. I'm not quite as young as I used to be, so putting my feet up and reading a good book and a bit around that. But yeah, the gym's taking a lot of my time. As I say, photography, a bit of theatre. Just it's not quite the party environment it used to be about 12 years ago, when you'd wake up with a hangover every morning. So I try and avoid that now.
Nice, Hamish. Already, the bidding career itself is, we are at the mercy of the deadlines and stuff. In addition to that, you just keep your curling going and you have your hobbies. That's the best thing. So keep it going. So let's officially enter the random rapid fire question round. There is no right or wrong answer, Hamish. Whatever comes in your mind, just do that. Yeah. So do you take your phone to the bed in the night?
Take my phone to bed at night. Yes, I put it beside me, but I always have the notifications turned off, and I only have my phone there available to me. So I've got my closest contacts, my wife, my dad, my mum. So if they want to phone me, that comes through. But yeah, it just sits there, and I look at it for the clock and the weather.
That's nice. That's nice. Are you a morning or a night person?
Oh, I'm a night person. Come on, man, you know that.
I know, but just in case. Nice. So do you play board games? If so, what's your favorite board game?
No, I've not, but I have played one or two games, and I can't remember the one, but no, I've not played board games for a long time. No, that doesn't, it takes too long.
Totally. I think if what's something that you buy every time you go for grocery shopping?
Milk. I love drinking milk, and it's funny when I go in the office here in Sydney, I'll have a drink of milk, and people look at it and go, "Oh, you're drinking raw milk?" I'm like, "Yeah." So yeah, that's a very interesting cultural difference. Where that's where I grew up. But yeah, there you go.
Yes, that's nice. I mean, like, yeah, of course. So what's the favorite food for you, and what's the weirdest thing that you have ever eaten?
Favorite food has got to be curry. Oh yeah, the other one, going back to questions that people might not know. Yeah, I entered MasterChef Australia this year, so I didn't get selected, but I entered it, and certainly I love cooking curries and eating curries. Mada Jaffrey, her curry Bible, it's well, the pages are well thumbed on that. So yeah, I love that. The weirdest thing I've eaten, probably, I think I had a deep fried bit of crocodile. I think people might think I was going to say deep fried Mars bar, but I think I had deep fried crocodile once a few years back, and that was in Inverness in the north of Scotland. So there you go. That's a bit of a strange thing to be eating in Inverness.
I am definitely visiting you soon, Hamish. I didn't realize there is a chef within you. My God, that's for me. Wow, that's brilliant. So Yeah, fried crocodile, definitely. So, Hamish, over the years, we might have built up a lot of habits. What's the hardest thing for you to give up?
Hardest thing to give up. Oh, again, I'd be interested to hear from the bidding community, but having a beer after work, or more than a beer after work, that's the hardest. And I think as you get older, you realize the toll it takes on you. And it'd be interesting to speak to young bidding professionals about how they decompress. But certainly, I'm very much, I would say, old school. That having a beer or two is really difficult to say no. I'm not having that one more. And yes, as I say, maybe it's one for the future, Bhaskar, for you to think about podcast or whatever you do to talk about how do you actually look after your health and the rest. But yeah, that's a big one, and it's something I worry about sometimes.
I think it's true, Hamish, especially this COVID has put a toll on everybody. And in good old times, we used to meet a lot of people, as you know. Even after a long day, we meet, we have a drink, and the next day we continue. As you rightly said, we might end up finishing 3 a.m. in the morning, but 7:30, 8 o'clock, we are on the desk cracking the bed again.
Yeah.
But these days, you don't have that much opportunities to go out and drink, so we just get used to. But again, that's your way of breaking down, and it's more or less the same for me as well. I tend to eat ice creams every day now. I don't know why. My wife hates it. 10 o'clock in the night, I'll be opening the freezer and I'll be having an ice cream. And my kids have got it now. So it's true. That's good. Perfect. So let's go on. Who haven't you seen or talked to in a long time and you hope that they're doing okay?
Well, you for a start. It was great to hear from you. I think, again, a lot of the stuff, what I've tried to do is think about, my network and to reach out to people. I realise every time I come back to the UK that I haven't spoken to people or hung around with them. And one colleague in particular, and friend, very good friend, in Bhaskar, him, Davy Tanner. Davy and I, we work together very, very closely and very friendly. And that's one that I've never been able to catch up with, and it's not that I regret it, but it's just one of those ones every time you just go, oh, gee whiz, I wish I'd managed to catch up. But equally, I know you've organised a few get-togethers in London, and, as yourself, Elaine Bailey, a few others, Ian Keir, Erica Shevlin and others. So, there's a lot of people from that time that when we do chat, it really grounds you. And it's important to do that. So again, it's I'll stop there.
I think you have just reminded me. Yeah, I do. I will organize a virtual one very soon, Hamish, for the summer, and definitely go back and we will do something perfect. So, if you were to write a book about yourself, what would you name it?
Oh, gee whiz. I did all right, didn't I?
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful title. That is really nice, though. I love it. I didn't all right. Oh, cool. I love it. So if you had a choice, which animal would you be and why?
Oh, I'd love to say. So Nick Cummins is I think a rugby league player here in Australia, and he got the nickname Honey Badger, and the reason he chose it because the honey badger jumps on the animal's stomach and claws it out. I don't think I'd quite be the honey badger, but wow. I think probably, I don't know. Oh, gee whiz. I'll go for the hedgehog because my dad loves hedgehogs. They're spiky on the outside but soft on the inside. There you go. What a cliche.
Do you remember the very first band you saw live?
Yes.
Which one?
The Communards, Jimmy Somerville. Saw them in Barrowlands in 1986. I've still got the T-shirt, actually. I remember I went with a school friend called Marco Longmore, who now works in Hong Kong, and I found the T-shirt when I was home recently in Inverness. So that was fantastic.
Totally. And which pop group do you rate as a perfect 10? What type of music do you listen to?
Underworld. Underworld. So Underworld are amazing. That's saw them live at Sydney Opera House. That was just a complete buzz. But I like all types of music. I mean, I could talk. Generally, when you go to pub quizzes, if there's a music round, then I'll get that. But yeah, Underworld is just for me, they're the best.
Totally. So the last question on this: what's the most interesting place you have ever been to?
Most interesting place? I'd probably say Moscow. I nearly said Las Vegas, but Moscow. So I went to Moscow with my wife 10 years ago. 10 years ago for 40th birthday, and yeah, it was just fantastic. I remember going up, seeing the Red Square, and they've just had it, haven't they? The May Day parade, seeing all that growing up. So when we were in Moscow and seeing that, it was just incredible. Going to Lenin's tomb, and it was just fascinating. And I doubt anybody will be able to get to Russia again for a very long time for good reasons. But yeah, that was just stunning.
Totally. Thank you for sharing. Hamish, I think let's get into the gratitude round. So who are the people who are the most influential in your life, personal life, and also professional career?
Professional career, you mentioned Elaine Bailey. Absolutely. Elaine taught me everything I know about bidding, and taught me about how you bid well. And not just about bidding, but how you look after people. So I think everybody that's worked with Elaine, and for those who don't know Elaine was business development director for Home Affairs, and then became managing director for Home Affairs for Serco in the UK. But yeah, wonderful mentor, coach, teacher, and everything else. So and I think equally when I came to Australia, Sheila Majee, who was also my boss, but she was the sales director, was a wonderful supporter, and did much more than I realized. So they were fantastic. In terms of my personal life, yeah, clearly my father, learned a lot from him in terms of communication and approach and culture. Yeah, I'm not sure what else, but yeah, I'll maybe stop there. I think that's probably three very good individuals to talk about there.
Totally. Thank you, Hamish. Who's the kindest person you know?
The kindest person? Gee whiz. Kindest person. I think currently I'm working with one in the team, a lady called Lydia Towert, who works with the team. And yeah, before I left to go to the thing I said earlier with the curling and everything else, arranged a cake with pictures of me on it just to say thank you and well done. It was presented by the team. So yeah, but I see kindness all the time, and I think that's a good thing about the team that I work with. There's kindness all the time where people, actually spend the time to say, are you okay? Not just in that way, but are you okay? How are you doing? And everything else. And I think I'm very lucky in the culture and the team that I'm working with just now, that you're surrounded by it, and it's really, really quite good. It's more than good. It's nice to be in that, knowing that if you're having a shit day, apologies, that there's someone there looking out for you, and it's great to be surrounded by that.
That's totally amazing. I mean, we spend a lot more time at work than at home. Most of the time these days with COVID and stuff, it's the other way around. But that's important. The people whom you spend time with, who come and ask you a very basic question, how are you? Making a cup of tea, coffee, and it makes a massive difference. And at least we can share a lot more. Again, Hamish, I think in good old days, a lot more than even my wife. we spend more time, because we stay in hotels, we leave on a Monday. And I remember you traveling Monday morning, coming all the way from Scotland, spending Monday to Thursday in the work environment, leaving only Friday and going back to spend only the weekends. I know time and time we have done this, and many of our colleagues and friends have doing it, which means work is the family. And if you have the right people, it makes a massive difference. But thank you for sharing. I'm sure she will appreciate that. So, Hamish, what have you observed lately in these COVID times that reminded you that people are kind? I mean, like somebody outside, anything that you read, you saw, that reminded you, oh, I never thought this people can go to this extreme.
So yeah, I've seen people volunteering. I think in Sydney, the Sikh community, especially cooking meals and preparing them and sending them out, even during COVID, that got a lot of press here, which was amazing. But even smaller things again within the team. One of the guys, Simon Charnock, would regularly phone and he would just say, "Hey, welfare check, how are you going?" Small things like that. And I think it's the small things. I don't think you have to make grand gestures. It's about, picking up the phone and speaking to people, and just lots of that going on. And I probably didn't notice a lot of it. But, I think those are the big things. It was the small things, hearing about the people had got in touch, or hearing that they've had Zoom calls, or there were just lots of those, I would say, micro moments going on that just people looking out for each other. And I suppose me being here on my own, it's a bit different that I've not had that exposure to family. But I saw lots of that going on. And again, that goes back to the team that I'm working with, and the wider sort of empathy that they have, and the real high levels of emotional intelligence, which was really good.
Perfect. 100%, Hamish, 100%. Hamish, what's that one common myth about the bid and proposal profession that you want to debunk?
Oh, one common myth. That it's all hard work. It's not hard work. It's a lot of hard work, but it's also a huge amount of fun. And if you like it, it's probably one of the most, well, I'm biased, but I think it's probably one of the most fulfilling careers that you can have. But I would say if that's a myth that it's all just hard work, it's not. And again, Bhaskar, the amount of laughs, we're talking, after 15 years, the friendships that you form, and, if you get in the right company, then in the right organization, then you're going to make lifelong friendships, because they're forged in those midnight 1 a.m. discussions, that last 24 hours when, okay, it shouldn't happen, but you've not slept for 24 hours and you get the proposal in and then you win it, that sort of stuff. It's incredible. And I think for me, that's the one. It's not all hard work.
That's great, Hamish. I think that was fast. As you rightly said, that's very important. Hamish, I know you shared a lot of good advices already, but what's the best piece of advice you received from, and what's that one advice you would like to share it to the bid and proposal professionals?
I think the first one, advice to bid and proposal professionals, is submitting a bid is not a win. You need to submit. You need to be proud of every proposal you submit, and you need to believe that that's the best you could have done, and that's got a chance of winning. Because if you're bidding to submit, then you're just doing a job. You're not actually in it. So, absolutely every time. And I've been there. Sometimes I've been there recently. It's just, God, that was a success that we got it in, and you forgot that you were trying to actually win business. So you need to be proud of that. The best piece of advice, don't know, I can't remember. What would I say? Probably just get on with it. Just get on with it. It's going to be hard, but just get on with it. That probably sounds a bit hard, but sometimes we've got a bit of self-doubt and everything else. If you're in this business and you've been in it for a year or two, then you're in it and you know how to do it. So, trust in yourself. And that's the other one, is if you don't know what to do, just do something, because that's better than doing nothing.
Beautiful, Hamish. What a profound advice. 100%. You are in it. You are in it to win it. But if that's not the case, you are doing something. Don't do nothing. And that's great. Amazing. Thank you, Hamish. Hamish, we talked about your early life career and how you kind of evolved as what we call a full stack bidder, from starting from operations, moving into bids, leading bids, managing teams, different geographies, different sectors. We talked about some random questions, hobbies, interests, some advices here and there. Is there any parts of your life or career that we have missed, or is there anything else you would like to share, Hamish, in the last minute of the podcast?
Not really. I mean, it does sound like I've worked hard, but I think you need to recognise. I think the big thing is, and bidding is, it's a huge demand on you, and I think if you are bidding, you have to work hard at your relationships, family, partners, and everything else. It's very easy to forget those. And it's much easier now, I think, these days, especially the last few years, is to get the work-life balance more right. But, my relationships have been impacted by the toll of work. And I think if I can do anything, and I'm trying to do that, is to try and make sure that people can bid and work in bidding and be successful, and also have, a successful personal life, whatever that shape might take. And that's really, really important, because we've all seen people that have been burnt out and left at the wayside, and have lost their relationships and everything else because they become so focused on work, and that's not right. That's not acceptable. So we, especially me now, being slightly more senior, that I need to work like that, and I need to provide some leadership to make sure that doesn't happen. So it becomes a fulfilling career, but it's not to the detriment of everybody around you.
Wow, that's a beautiful closure, Hamish. Thank you, Hamish. Hamish, what's something that you're looking forward to in the immediate future? What's planned out in the next year or two for you?
Next year or two, well, my kids are 21 and 18 in next year. So that's January and April. So I'm looking forward to that. And then who knows, getting to that age now. Maybe I'll retire next year. Maybe I won't. Maybe that's wishful thinking. But again, just looking to travel, getting back to the UK, seeing family and friends much more, and, trying to impose that balance that I talked about onto myself. So I'm actually living what I'm saying and not just talking about it.
Totally, Hamish. I think, you have all the love and support of people, even though we haven't seen each other. When we meet our mutual friends, we always talk about you, and they always talk about others, and that's who we are. So continue to stay healthy, continue to stay happy. Thank you so much for joining. I've always had you, and somehow or the other it's taken me so far to get you, but it's been a privilege to have you at Scribble Talk. Wish you, your family, your colleagues, everybody you touch, all the good health and happiness. Continue to inspire our industry and also everyone around you. Thank you, Hamish. Stay healthy, stay happy. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks, Bhaskar. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchuscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundram,
signing off.